The string quartet was playing Debussy when I found out the wedding was cancelled. Not postponed. Not paused for a private conversation. Cancelled, the way you cancel something that should never have been scheduled in the first place. I know the exact moment it happened because I was watching the violinists bow hand when the hotel manager appeared in the ballroom doorway, whispered something to the event coordinator, and the coordinator's face did that specific thing faces do when a situation has moved from manageable to permanent. It was 6:42 p.m. 300 guests were already seated. The lakefront outside was turning gold the way Washington lakes do in September, like the whole sky was showing off for an occasion it didn't know was already over. I set my ginger ale down and thought, there it is. I need to back up 11 years. Because revenge, real revenge, the kind that actually costs somebody something, doesn't start with a plan. It starts with a moment you file away and try to forget. Mine started in a Chicago kitchen on a rainy Sunday morning. Holt Rennick was standing at the counter holding an espresso cup when he told me our 6-year relationship was over. He used the phrase, moving in different directions. He used the phrase, the world I'm building. He looked calm the way people look calm when they've rehearsed something in the shower for 3 weeks. I remember staring at the chip on the rim of his coffee mug because I couldn't look at his face yet. "You're a good man, Barrett," he said. "You just don't really fit anymore." I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I said, "Okay." Put on my coat. Walked out into the rain. And filed that sentence somewhere behind my sternum where it sat for years like a splinter too deep to reach. Here's what you need to understand about Holt Rennick to understand everything that followed. He wasn't a villain. That would have been simpler. He was something more ordinary and more dangerous. A genuinely brilliant man who'd been told he was special so many times, so consistently, that he'd quietly stopped believing rules applied to him the same way they applied to everyone else. Back when we met, he was magnetic. Ambitious in that infectious way that makes you think ambition is a shared project. We split rent above a Thai restaurant in Wicker Park. We had the same bad dreams about money. He'd come home late from his MBA seminars and I'd have dinner waiting and we'd sit on the fire escape even in November and talk about what we were going to build. Then he got promoted. Then promoted again. Then something shifted, not suddenly, but the way water changes temperature when you've been in it too long. Different clothes. Different laugh. A way of scanning rooms when he walked in, like he was calculating the hierarchy before he'd said hello to anyone. By year 4, he'd stopped listening. Not rudely, he was never rude. He just started waiting for his turn to speak. There's a difference, and you feel it in your chest long before you can name it. By year 6, I was introduced at his corporate events as Barrett, no qualifier, no context. Like a neighbor. Like a guy who came with the apartment. When he left, I told myself I was fine. I was not fine. But I was functional, which sometimes matters more. I moved to Seattle. Took a position at Norvale Advisory running compliance strategy, smaller firm, better people, zero magazine coverage. Built a quiet life with early mornings and work I actually understood the purpose of. That's where I met Leora Vance. First week, she watched a senior partner absolutely massacre a client presentation for 25 minutes, then leaned toward me and whispered, without any expression at all, "That man has the confidence of someone who has never been told no near a mirror." I almost lost it completely. We've been best friends since. Leora has this gift, she sees the architecture of situations before anyone else notices there's a building. She heard the Holt story once, in full, over terrible airport wine during a delayed flight to Portland, and when I finished she just said, "He mistakes admiration for love." Classic formation. I thought about that sentence for weeks. The reappearance happened 18 months ago. Holt's logistics company was merging with a freight infrastructure group out of Vancouver. Norvale got contracted for compliance integration oversight. Guess who became lead advisor? The first time Holt saw me in the glass conference room overlooking Elliott Bay, He blinked once, just once, and recovered with the speed of a man who'd been managing his reactions since business school. "Barrett," he said, extending his hand. "Small world." I shook it. "Apparently." He smiled. I smiled. Neither of our smiles reached anything. His fiancée, Vivian Kress, was worse. Vivian came from Connecticut old money and had elevated disdain into a personal brand. She treated every consultant in the room like a piece of furniture that could theoretically talk, which she found mildly impressive. She asked me once, with the specific politeness of someone who wants to wound without leaving marks, whether Norvale advisors operated on salary tiers or more freelance energy. I told her it depended on how many billion-dollar mistakes we prevented. Leora kicked me under the table. Worth it. The trigger happened 3 weeks before the wedding. Pre-merger dinner in Bellevue. Investors, attorneys, executives, those horrible plates where the food looks like it's trying to be abstract art. Vivian had champagne and a loosening grip on her better judgment, and at some point, I was reviewing notes across the room, she said to a group near the balcony. "Honestly, I still can't believe Holt almost married someone from the operations side of life." Small laughter. That particular brand of social chuckling that sounds like approval but is really just relief that it's not directed at you. I looked at Holt. He gave that tight smile people use when a line's been crossed but the social momentum feels too expensive to interrupt. He looked back at me for half a second. Then away. That was the moment. Not because of what Vivian said. Because of that half second, and what was in it. The same quiet calculation I'd watched him make for 6 years, the mental arithmetic of what can I let slide without losing status, and the same answer he always arrived at. The room. He'd always choose the room. I set down my tablet, excused myself, and went to find the bathroom. Standing at the sink, I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. Then I made a decision. Here's the part nobody talks about in revenge stories: the work is boring. 3 weeks of compliance documentation review. Cross-referencing vendor agreements with ethics disclosure requirements. Pulling email threads, timestamping them, running them through merger counsel. What I found, what I'd actually noticed months earlier but hadn't acted on, was this: Vivian had quietly leveraged her investment network to pressure a merger vendor into exclusive wedding sponsorship arrangements using promises of post-merger contract preferencing. Technically unethical. Structurally disqualifying under the compliance appendices Holt's team had signed. And Vivian had put it in writing. Multiple times. One email, and I want to be precise here because the wording mattered enormously to the lawyers, read: "Once Holt signs post-merger authority, we can reward partners properly." I submitted the ethics escalation package to merger counsel and the independent review board on a Thursday morning. No personal note. No editorializing. The exact process mandated by the contractual policy I was hired to enforce. Then I went to get coffee and did not think about it again until my phone rang on Friday. Which brings us back to the string quartet. The Debussy had stopped by 6:50. I could hear the shift in the room, that specific acoustic change when 300 people all start murmuring at once, a low hum like a building settling. Leora appeared beside me. "Board suspended merger finalization an hour ago," she said quietly. 2 investors left. Someone posted something online. I nodded. "You okay?" she asked. I thought about it honestly. "Yeah," I said. "Weirdly. You don't seem satisfied." "I'm not unsatisfied." She considered that. "That's actually the scariest version." Holt came downstairs at 7:30. No jacket. Tie open at the collar. The particular pallor of a man who's just discovered that charisma stops working at a certain altitude of consequence. He sat across from me without asking. The bar pianist was playing something soft and irrelevant. Outside, rain moved down the floor-to-ceiling windows in long silver lines. You could have warned me, he said finally. Not I'm sorry. Not I should have said something when she made that comment. Just the quiet outrage of a man who couldn't understand why someone from the operations side of life had been allowed to enforce consequences. You had 6 months of legal review sitting in your office, I said. You know what I mean. Yeah, I said. I do. He leaned back. Jaw working. She made a comment at a dinner. Vivian can be, he stopped. Started again. You burned everything down over pride? I almost laughed at that word coming from him. The specific irony of it. No, I said. You burned it down because you stopped believing rules were for you. He stared at me. Your whole life, I continued, and I kept my voice level, because quiet truths travel further than loud ones, you tested how much you could take from people before they pushed back. Not because you're cruel. Because you needed to know the hierarchy. You needed to know who mattered and who was scenery. Something moved through his face. I was scenery, I said. For a long time. And I let myself be, because I was in love with you and love makes you negotiate against yourself. The rain kept going. I'm not in love with you anymore, I said. I'm just a compliance officer who did his job. Holt rubbed both hands over his face. When he put them down he looked older than I'd ever seen him. The shine gone out of him, not humbled, exactly. Just human. Was any part of this personal? He asked. I didn't lie. At the beginning. Yeah. And now? I looked at the wilting floral arrangement near the ballroom doors. A wedding that never happened, spending its last night in an expensive vase. Now, I said, it's just paperwork. He stood slowly. No parting line. No dramatic exit. Just a man walking away from something he'd built on sand, finally feeling the ground move. 3 months later, the merger closed under restructured board oversight. Holt kept his title. Lost most of his authority. The kind of outcome that looks fine on a press release and feels like a cage every morning. Vivian ended the engagement, moved to New York, and started over in a city that rewards people who mistake arrogance for sophistication. Leora got promoted. Made partner 6 months after that. I attended the small celebration dinner and watched her give a toast so precise and funny that 3 senior executives were taking notes. And me? I kept my quiet apartment. My early mornings. Work that mattered without needing an audience. People sometimes ask if watching Holt fall apart was worth it. Honestly, that's not where the satisfaction lived. The real thing, the actual release, came on that Thursday morning when I submitted the escalation package and walked out to get coffee and noticed, somewhere between the elevator and the street, that I'd stopped measuring myself against his approval. Just like that. Like a frequency I'd been tuned to for 11 years finally going silent. Everything after that was just procedure. And procedure, done correctly, has a beautiful kind of weight to it. It doesn't need your feelings. It doesn't need your name on it. It just needs to be right.